Hello and welcome to this evening's discussion. My name is Donald Colera I'm the Sinn Féin TD for Cork South Central and our spokesperson on education. But we're not just going to be talking about education today, we're going to be talking about everything under the sun really, because the coronavirus and everything connected to it, it's obviously, something that's had a huge impact on health, and people have lost people belong to them in very tragic circumstances. But it's also changed our lives in thousands of little different ways. And, I think the balance is different for everyone. It's something that always strikes me is that everyone's experience of the lockdown has been different, and we're all missing different things, and we're all recognising different things that are a bit better, maybe. And maybe thinking about how what went before maybe wasn't all that normal or wasn't all that good in the first place. So I'm joined by my fellow Corkonian, Tadhg Hickey, comedian, actor and satirist. And we're going to talk about what was normal like anyway. So, Tadhg, how are you, first of all?
I'm actually great. How are you?
I'm good. Not too bad. So listen, Tadhg, I guess, as I say, the lockdown, it's so different for everyone. And I think there's so many things that people miss, from what people call what was normal before. There's people who are absolutely gasping for a pint, dying to get to a game of ball, dying to go training. People who miss relatives, people who haven't seen relatives, people who haven't seen loved ones. And as I was saying in my promo clip, people who are absolutely dying for a haircut. So I guess maybe the first thing is, what are the things about the lockdown that you found maybe a little bit better than the way things were before? What has been the good aspects of lockdown for you?
Well, I'm starting for a haircut anyway, as you can see, so I don't share that kind of pain at all. But yeah, one of the best things that has what I'm mostly doing is sunbathing. I'm doing a little bit of writing. There's 2 robins bouncing around the garden here at the moment. I don't know, are they a couple or are they friends or what's going on? They're kind of messing around with a load of worms, and that's kind of my preoccupation at the moment, instead of what's the next gig. So I suppose in a long-winded way, I've kind of learned that busyness doesn't equal kind of happiness. I was definitely a lot busier beforehand, but I suppose this period of self-reflection has kind of been foisted upon me. I wouldn't have taken it myself, and that's been really good, I think.
I think it's given me anyway definitely a whole perspective. I guess in a way it's reaffirmed maybe some of the instincts that I would have always had. But I think it goes to show that the people who make the world turn aren't the wealthy and the powerful. The people who, when it comes to it, the people that we rely upon are the frontline workers, the healthcare workers. And right down to all kinds of frontline workers, our shop workers, people who work in communications, all kinds of things like that. But personally for me, the lockdown, it's parts of it have been tough, but parts of it have been fantastic as well. I've been really lucky. This is, my son is 8 months old now, and I would have probably never anticipated being able to spend as much time with him as I have been able to because traveling up and down to Dublin and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really different, to be honest. The work, we're as busy as ever, right? So our constituency office, physically they're closed, but the numbers are redirected to myself and my secretary Karen, and we're working from home and we're doing emails and phone calls and all that kind of stuff from there. But it's really, really different, working from home. Both of us are working from home and trying to balance all that, and some of that can be challenging enough too, but it's great too in ways, and you find yourself in all sorts of coming at things totally differently. Emer and Shay, our 9-year-old, my stepson, have been doing a lot of camera work for all these. You see all these clips on social media and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I must post up some set of outtakes or something like that at some stage. There was one that Shay I can't even remember what it was for, but we were in the front room and it took 9 or 10 efforts to get the video right for the Facebook page. Like, but Emer was busy with Fiach, our baby, and I asked Shay to do it, and Shay was standing on top of a chair, and he was messing and having a bit of crack and all this kind of stuff. Like, but I looked back in the phone, like we got it eventually. Like, but like 8 or 9 of the clips were Shay taking a selfie video of himself, like, and trying to keep a serious, straight face, as I was spouting away on my politics, like, and he was keeping a pure poker face, like. So there's any amount of things like that are just a bit different, like, you know, like. You know,
and like I don't want to make light of it either, like, because as you say, like this is a very challenging period for loads of people, and like I suppose I was focusing on the positive there at the start, but the flip side, when you were mentioning your kids there, like I don't live with my daughter, so I haven't given her a hug in 2 months. You know what I mean? So, and I'm reminded that people can't see their grandparents and can't see, you know. So that's the other side of it. Like I just think that like all crises, and we'll probably get onto this in a minute, like on a global level and a national level, all crises, they are extremely painful and challenging, but they provide an opportunity for reflection then, and kind of how can we move forward in a more productive, positive way for society, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I mean, and look, as I say, my stepson Shay hasn't seen his dad for a very long time as well. It's really, really tough. Like, you know, and right across the country, there's people who haven't, you know, grandparents who haven't met a kid, or people who've had to bury a relative and maybe not be able to go to the funeral. Like, you know, so it's really, really tough. It's tough for people financially too. Like, I think, you know, there's so many people who are such uncertain situations at the minute. Like, you know, in terms of their jobs, like people who might be working in pubs or shops or anything like that. Like, and they're worried about whether the pub or the shop will ever reopen or anything like that. And like probably in your own situation, like in the arts sector, like it's very, very similar. Like people who be hoping for gigs and things like that. Like, I mean, they're just gone by the wayside and not sure when venues are going to reopen. And like, I think there probably does need to be support for artists there, really, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, yeah, like I'd like to kind of give a shout out to my fellow artists, because like we're in a country that I think, you know, not to put too fine a point on it, like doesn't really appreciate artists at all, and the political system for too long has just ignored us. Like, I mean, Josepha Madigan's €1 million bonanza there recently, like is just a bit of an insult, really, you know, without getting into specific party stuff, which I know we're not going to kind of waste time doing that. We're going to try and be positive about it. But I think if you look at, say, you know, New Zealand investing, I think close to 175 million, like, and we're very analogous to them in so many ways in terms of population and size and everything and stuff. But I think they're investing in the arts because they realize the arts are so important. I mean, at the first couple of months in lockdown, if you didn't have the arts, you'd have no books, you'd have no film, and I think that has to happen. That has to change in people's hearts and minds. First of all, people have to take the arts a little bit more seriously. I think that's worth my while doing that. So yeah, without going on a rant, I think in this lockdown and this period, we can maybe come out the other side of it and kind of say we need to get behind the arts, because we need the arts so much for our souls, you know. So I think it's great, like the likes, I think Fintan O'Toole's article there recently was great, and Richard Boy Barrett, like it's great that, you know, that people are acknowledging that, and that's one thing I'm hopeful about, that we'll come out the other side of that and we'll kind of think we need to throw the arm around the artists, and not just when it's a photo opportunity for government, you know.
Yeah, and it's so important to so many communities. Like, it's, you know, it's important for people's mental health, like for their self-expression. It's important for tourism and any amount of things like that too. I suppose one of the other things, like, I mean, speaking of the arts, like we're all watching an awful lot more television at the minute. Like, so what is your binge during this lockdown?
I'm actually watching, I know this is going to sound deeply pretentious now, but I'm actually watching a lot of documentaries and stuff rather than TV and stuff. I'm watching a lot of kind of Chomsky and Naomi Klein and stuff like that. So if I go off on any kind of socialist rants now, I'll either leave the meeting or you just turn off your laptop or something. But I do think I think it's an opportunity to try and, like, I'm reading a little bit more like I wasn't before, and I'm watching stuff and trying to educate myself a little bit, I suppose, in terms of what this crisis was like, what this crisis is like, what other crises were like, what's this socio-economic system how is it responding to it? Like, I suppose there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we kind of all knew it was coming. Like, I live with a guy who's got a degree in science, And when he started in 2005, they were talking about this kind of, the next pandemic, so if you feel like the people who are in power knew it was coming, and yet this kind of system that we all live under didn't really, it has always prioritized private profit over public health. So, you're not going to stockpile a load of ventilators and masks when you can just throw out a new cream or something, you know what I mean? So I think it's good to just become aware of that. Like, and I don't mean to be flippant, but like, I suppose what I'm looking at for myself is, instead of, just watching these videos and having these views and looking at injustices in society, and then kind of just going, yeah, well, I have that knowledge now. What do you kind of do about it? So that, like, what can I do? What can any of us do to try and make a difference? Because I think the difference always comes in people power, which you can see in the States at the moment. Like, for instance, you know what I mean? The people have just gone, we're not putting up with this anymore, which I think that's a brilliant moment. I think that's happening in Irish society as well, by the results of the last general election.
Yeah, like I think there's a huge appetite for like a really radical change. Like, and to be honest, like I mean, the title of our chat like is "What Was Normal Anyway?" Like, and like I totally get that people are craving a bit of normality, and because what we're going through, whatever it is, the last thing it is normal. Like, like spending, where, our movement is restricted, and, so many businesses are closed, and, just the pattern of life has been disrupted. And like, that's not all bad either. Like,
No.
because like, I think as I say, like, I really am struck by the fact that I think this is so different for everyone, and like how the good and the bad for different people is so varied. Like, but like, I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, and they say like that, like, what they don't miss is, if you lived way up North Cork and you're commuting into the city, or if you lived in, I don't know, Cavan and you're commuting into Dublin, like, like you could be commuting, I don't know, 15, 20, more than that hours a week. Like, and it's all that time in your car. Like, and, a lot of those people are, those of them that are still in work, they're working from home. Like, and there's so much more time, and there's so much more opportunity to spend with family. Now, that's not true for everyone. Like, there's a lot of frontline workers who aren't in that position, and there's people like yourself or Shay's dad who aren't in that situation either. Like, but like, I mean, I do think there's so much about the way life was before that just wasn't really that normal, just wasn't that healthy. Like, like hamsters on a wheel kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
and I think with this crisis, like, like there is an opportunity to try and do something different. Like, I mean, the last recession was, it was crushing for an awful lot of people. And like, in my view, the wrong approach was taken, and the human cost was unbelievable. Like, I mean, I don't think we can let that happen again. So I think there's huge opportunities. But like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, what is for you? Like, what's the bit that you don't miss from life before this crisis, before this lockdown?
Yeah, well, I think you've touched on it there. It's this kind of blind. I mean, we all do it, whether you're in the arts or you're in business, you're in insurance, you're in politics, or whatever. There's a kind of a blindness to the way you just kind of get up every day and kind of go, well, this is the thing I have to do. You don't really take a step back from it and question it. So, yeah, like, I'm just kind of questioning everything at the moment, kind of saying, like, for instance, I didn't really do much political comedy up until very recently, because I thought I should just keep my comedy separate. And then the more I was kind of reading and looking into kind of injustices, and I suppose I'd be, left leaning in my thinking and stuff, but like, it's not what the left is looking for, like you just touched on there. It's not like radical kind of hippie nonsense. Like, the left is just looking for, to have a roof over your head, to maybe have an aspiration of one day getting your own gaff, that people aren't homeless, that our loved ones aren't dying on trolleys. Like, these are not lofty, unattainable utopian ideas. You know what I mean? These are just the things that I think are basic human rights. So yeah, so I think that kind of, just questioning why you're doing what you're doing and what's really making you happy as well, if that doesn't sound too pretentious, because I'm kind of repeating myself now, but I know, like, up until this point, I was really busy, but I don't really know kind of how happy I was, So I think that reflection is good. It's good to reflect as an individual and then reflect as a society as well. And I think that's kind of where we're at. There's a fierce appetite for change, as you said. Like, when you talk to people, in that general election, there was a real moment, I think, where people they mightn't even be Sinn Féin voters as such, but they had an appetite for the inequality that has just dogged Irish society and Irish successive governments for so long to just end. People had enough. And I really hope that moment isn't lost. I hope actually it's crystallized, that it grows through this pandemic, that we want change. Like, and I don't think anybody who voted for change had Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Green Party in mind to lead that change. And that's the last time now I'm going to mention specific parties, because I did promise I wouldn't.
That's all right. Well, you could say maybe that some of those parties are a bit boring, like, in my view, and the political scene that we've had has been a lot of the same old, and like that's one of the main, I suppose, gripes that an awful lot of people have about at the minute, right, in the situation that we're in. Like, people are, like, in lots of instances, they're bored to tears, like, and look, there's very, very good reasons for that. It's important that we keep safe, like, but it's hard for people too, like, and people miss the pubs, people miss gigs, people miss the game of ball and all that kind of stuff. Like, are you finding yourself bored, like, at the minute, like, and it's a mental health issue, of course, as well, like, boredom and isolation, but are you bored, like?
I don't really get bored. Do you know what I mean? I just be honest there. I don't really get bored. Like, like if you go on to YouTube, like, there's like as much information as any of us could ever have imagined just at your fingertips. You know what I mean? I suppose I definitely get a bit cabin fevery, all right? And there's moments where you're like, there's aspects of wanting to go back to the old life. And I don't want to be like banging on about, like, I'm a sofa socialist at best. Like, I'm not an authority on any of this stuff, like, but I don't want to be banging on about it. But like, on a practical level, you're dead right. Like, what I miss, I suppose, is people. And that's what this period has really showed us, like, that we miss each other and congregating together and being in each other's houses. And like, I can't wait to give my daughter a hug now. Like, but at the same time, I really appreciate it then when I go and give her the hug. But I think this period as well is showing that, like, we kind of need each other. We actually don't need a lot of crap. Like, you know what I mean? This kind of, the neoliberal, like, capitalist free market, where like everything is just kind of thrown at you, that you need this stuff and we have to buy loads of things. We don't really, like, we just need each other, give each other an old hug and an old chat. And that's kind of what the human spirit kind of needs, really. And I think it's a really cool period for people to kind of realize that about themselves, how little they do need in terms of stuff. They just need each other. And I think there's nothing more satisfying to see than people really gathering together and using their collective force to just kind of go, okay, we're sick of the way things are and we want something different. We want something fresh. This inequality, whatever that inequality is untenable. We won't put up with it anymore. And I think that's happening in lots of different guises around the world at the moment. I think that's really exciting. So I'm actually really hopeful about this. Now, of course, recognizing that people have lost loved ones in this period, and I'm not for a moment being flippant about that, and people have lost work. I've obviously lost work, and it's a very difficult period, but like, I think something really, quite amazing can come out of this, like, for both on a national level and I think globally.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you're absolutely right, and I think we might come to that in a minute, but I don't know, Tadhg, I think you're refining your viewing choices there a bit too, like, because I know at the start, like, you were out your back signing yourself watching Tiger King, weren't you?
I told you not to bring that up, like, one specific thing. I know, Osher, I'm very capable of a bit of fluff as well. Like, I tried to watch a few docs by day, and at night I could watch any old rubbish. What I'll kind of get into a kind of a loop of is like clips of my favourite Irish soccer players online. So I'm kind of watching the best of Liam Brady there in his pomp at the moment on a loop, like his movement. I can't believe now I've gone from the kind of the oppression of the overall capitalist system to Liam Brady's soccer skills. But look, that's where we are, Donica. And like, you'll watch one Brady clip then, and then you're into, like, the complete late 80s scene. You're into, like, Jackie Charlton, 1990, the whole shebang. So I get into soccer loops. I'm definitely missing soccer, right? I would say that. I'm missing live soccer. And I'm disappointed that Celtic kind of won the league just on Twitter. Like, that's how it was kind of announced, rather than playing the games. I really don't want the old enemy to have the kind of tainted win over us, like, but look.
Well, look, I mean, I think sport is a huge gap out of people's lives. Like, I mean, I definitely, like, sure, at the minute we'd be, after beating Kerry, we'd be well on our way to the hurling title. We'd be flying our way through the double is on, 30 years later, like, so
yeah.
I don't know, you'd miss it, like, and I see an awful lot of other people miss it, like, and they're, you're getting lots of clips of old games and things like that. Like I think people are going to run out too soon enough. A few lads sent me a clip of my club's bars, like and they sent me a clip of some under-21 match. I think it was an under-21 final from some stage in the mid-90s, and I was asked, all right, okay, and did we win that? And he says, no, we lost that, all right. Like, I kind of gone, right, we're really digging back into the archives if we're looking back
Misery
over.
clips, like.
Yeah. But like, I know, like, I mean, I think, and look, I can see it as well. Like, it's a big thing. Like, you'd see it, the absence of it with kids too. Like, like that they miss sport and all that extra energy, and it's tough. Like, and I think it is important, like obviously when it's safe, like, but I do think like that kind of the physical activity, and it's not just about the competitiveness, it's the social element of it too, like, and there's so many things like that too, like culture as well, like, but like people are missing out, like, and I think it is affecting communities and society when they can't gather and participate in sport and things like that, like, so like, I mean, I think that's a big gap for me, like, what about the pub? Do you miss the pub?
I don't see, like, I'm a ex-problem drinker, so that's one thing I don't miss. But I miss the kind of cafes, all right, I suppose, and that kind of scene. But yeah, it's not being allowed to hang out with people, and like you're totally right on the mental health level. Like that I suppose is like where you'd be concerned on the other side of this. Like, are the services there to kind of help people afterwards and stuff, like,
I think, like, yeah, and like, I mean, I think it's a huge issue, like, and we often think of, I was saying this to you earlier, like, not just like people, working age people, like, and how this affects their mental health and all the rest of it, but like, this is massive for kids too, like, like, I mean, especially, kids with special educational needs, like the lack of contact with other people, but older people too, like, who might be a bit isolated and, their family might live far away. Like, it's really, really tough on them, I think. The lack of, socialization, like, it's, like you touched on it yourself, like, it's such a key part of who we are. Like, I think especially Irish people, I think, that contact with other people, the sense of community, the sense of rootedness. And I think the crisis has brought out the best in terms of that too. Like, like communities have really, really responded. It's really amazing to see, the cars dropping off the Meals and Wheels and people checking in on each other and all that kind of stuff, like, and the different services, like, but I think it's been really challenging for communities as well, like, because like, I mean, people have not been in touch the same way, and it's just the community organisations that are just the fabric of who we are as a people, like, I think it's been absent.
And how do you? Because I'm actually fascinated as to, like, what's the difference between a politician pre lockdown and a politician in post lockdown? Like, how have things changed from the work that you do?
Like, as I say, we're as busy as ever, to be honest, and like some weeks are nearly busier than ever because people are out of work, like, people are under pressure, and like some of what we're doing is all the policy stuff and Leinster House and all the rest of it, but that's only a bit of it. Like, so often what we're doing is trying to support community organisations and things, but like, we're getting piles of phone calls, people who are down money, people who are worried about their mortgage, and when all those arrangements come to an end, people are concerned. Different things, like people who might be in a half-finished house, we're getting onto us kind of saying, well, when will they be able to finish our house and that we can move in and things like that. But like, some of it is too, like, I've really, like, it changes your perspective on work and like the work-life balance and all that kind of stuff too. And like, so myself and Emer, like, both of us are working from home. I was saying that earlier, like, and like, there's an element of when the kids are home, as they're all the time at the moment, like, we've to timetable our day a bit, and there's the organisation that's involved in that, and there's loads and loads of people trying to do that, and you're juggling things, and sometimes it's not possible to timetable things right. So like, I was on a party group meeting, I don't think Mary Lou knows this, but she was in the middle of a speech and I had to turn off the screen and change for Snappy, like, like this. But like, these are
it's more important, like,
well, like, this is right. Like, you just have to, you have to juggle, and you have to, like, and to be honest, it's given me an insight. Like, there's a lot of talk often about how we don't, um, how the economy and society doesn't value the role that women play in society, and home homemakers and carers, like whoever they may be. Like, I definitely have an increased insight into that, because and then sometimes as men, like, we can overlook that, like, but I definitely think it's true. Like, I think there has to be a realization that uh, like the challenges that people face in terms of trying to juggle raising children and work. It's really, really tough. And I think, like, for me, one of the things that has to come out of this is, like, more flexibility in terms of work. Like, it's not just in terms of people coming back from maternity leave or anything like that. Like, it's people with disabilities, it's people in rural areas, like so many things in terms of work. Like, and there's lots of other things too when we come to this in a minute. So many things that like employers would have told people that were impossible in terms of working from home has now become the normal. Like, so, like, for me, that has to be a big thing into the future. Like, that people, not everyone can work from home, of course, like, but for people who can, like, people should have an option. People should have that flexibility. Like, sometimes there's always been this pressure and fear that people, if they work from home, that they might be judged for it. And, the competitiveness of the workplace, like, so, like, for me, that's a big thing that needs to change. But I think we've
Absolutely.
seen, I think, and I think Mairead was talking about this too, like a lot of the things that we were told, not just, in individual workplaces, that were impossible, have turned out to be, the case, like, turned out to be the most appropriate response, the obvious response, the right thing to
Absolutely.
do in a crisis, like,
Well, as soon as the crisis kicked in, there actually was a magic money tree after all. Like, it just came out straight away. Like, and like as you say, yeah, all these kind of socialist policies that every other time of the year are seen as mad or crazy kind of ideas are then implemented straight away with a partly nationalised health service and a version of a universal basic income. Like, that's what I have at the moment. I think I speak for most actors and comedians when I say like 350 a week, regularly is actually pretty decent. Because what happens with us is you apply for a grant, and don't get me wrong, like some of the local services are great. They give you a little grant or whatever, but like you're using your grant to pay your rent a lot of the time. Like, so you need to kind of take corporate work then to fucking get your food, like an Aldi or whatever. So then it gets at the end of the month and people are like, show us what work you've done. You're kind of going, well, I have to take loads of corporate work to live. You know what I mean? Like, so it's back to kind of really supporting the arts in that regard. But no, but generally what you're saying though, yeah, like it's all these kind of these mad socialist policies are just in now, and Jesus, life hasn't collapsed at all. Like, it feels kind of fine. So yeah,
yeah,
that way it's that opportunity as well to kind of go like, well, all bets are off at the moment now. Like, all these things that we thought were crazy or couldn't work, that I think yourselves and other people have been talking about for years, they're all in, and the house hasn't fallen down.
yeah. Like, see, just as I'm sitting here, like, I'm just talking about the opportunities that exist, like, um, like, there's also, it's not necessarily going to be that way. We could get more of the same as well. And I think it's so
Yeah,
important that people stay engaged. I just got a push notification there from the Irish Times talking about, I couldn't read the exact it, but, like, talking about the deal that Varadkar might do with Fianna Fáil and the Greens, and some reference to a Jackie Healy-Rae style deal with independence or something like that. Like,
brilliant.
to be honest, like, that is the last thing that we need in many respects. Like,
Mm.
it's not the change that we need. Um, it's not. I don't think it's, like, seeing all those responses in terms of, a universal healthcare system, and the intervention with private hospitals, or
Mm-hmm.
the way that, there's need to be an intervention in terms of childcare and support for workers and all the rest of that. Like, the system such as we have it now sees that as an emergency response and wants to go back to the way things were with all its failings. And, if we're going to do this on a sustainable basis and an ongoing basis, it's not necessarily going to be, exactly the way it is now, or it's exactly the same approach, because, there's probably a better way of moving to a public system. But the point is, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity there to now, using the situation that we're in, the crisis that we're in at the minute, to build a better society and to take that
Yeah,
universal healthcare system, to keep that role, and to drive on to create that. Childcare is a public service. Like, we just don't
yeah,
value it in this
no,
society at all. But I was talking about Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and the Greens and the government that we might have, like, so Who did Patrick Quirk vote for in the last election, and what does he make of the crisis, and what would he make of what should happen next?
Well, Patrick Cork, I think you're a scumbag anyway, I'd say, first of all. A no good talker scumbag. I'd say Patrick Cork is probably a Fine Gael donor, I'd say. big Fine Gael man. But yeah, like the point of that character, I suppose, is just to kind of look at the ludicrous nature of the very, very rich. Because it's a tiny minority of people that will be in his position, I suppose. That's the thing. Like most, like if you're whether you're earning like 20 grand a year or 100 grand a year, but if you're putting your labor to make the shareholders of big corporations more wealthy, you're working class. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's a massive majority of people that are paying the taxes to recuperate from the subprime mortgage collapse in 2008 all over the world. It's always workers who pay for it with their tax money. So yeah, as you say, like, and I'm going to be cautious here now that I'm not too. The fella on Twitter there was saying I was only going to try and suck up to you on this and suck up to Sinn Féin. So I'm going to try and think of like something horrific to say about Sinn Féin there now before I go. But like that night when Sinn Féin came down to the Roadstone Park Hotel and you couldn't get a seat in the room, like the whole room, and they wouldn't have been Sinn Féin voters traditionally, a lot of those people, everyone felt there was a buzz in the room. Do you know what? We have a chance here to get away from the corporate lick up government succession one after another, like where, you know, again, private profit is prioritized over public health and the ordinary person getting a roof over their head, as you say, childcare, all basic. Like we're not. I don't think we're kind of crazy Marxists. You know what I mean? We just want. I think the people of Ireland generally want a society that's just a little bit more fair and prioritizes like the ordinary person rather than corporates. Again, like to go back to the €1 million that have been thrown into the arts, you know, like by comparison, €8 million has been spent on lawyers already in the Apple case so that we don't reclaim any money that's rightfully ours. You know what I mean? If that's an equal society, like, then I don't want to go back to that normal. Or like to go to the States as an example, I think there's like the billionaires in the States are up 500 billion in this period. Now, whether you're a Marxist or a capitalist or just a regular person, whatever you are, that's unfair. Like there's people are dying and losing their lives in this period, and in this period, the richest men in the world are getting richer. Like, and if that's normal, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, look, I mean, the society that we've built, you know, that has been built for us maybe more properly, like, I think the inequalities of it, and that's what I'm talking about when I say, like, what was normal anyway? Like there was nothing normal really about, 1,000 children homeless, 10,000 people homeless across the state, the commutes the people were doing, like, like there has to be something better than that, and that's what I would hope for. I'm going to ask you though, Tadhg, what's the funniest thing that's happened to you during lockdown, do you reckon?
Jesus, you have to catch me on the hop there now. See, like I'm in a Chomsky mode here now. Like I'm just like bang, 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 stats, sofa socialism. Like the funniest thing.
Well, people on sofas are entitled to socialism too.
Exactly.
I'm not sure what the funniest, like, but like, I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people are in this situation in terms of the haircuts. We were joking that they're not in that situation, like, but Emer's had to master a number of skills here, like, from the camera staff, like, and but one of the other things is the haircut, like, and I think she's done a reasonably good job, like, but after Varadkar, the Leo Varadkar came out with, I can't remember, one of the announcements anyway on a Friday evening. I knew that the haircut was going to be a while off. Like I said, I'm going to bite the bullet here anyway. Like, like this is a while off here. Like this is going too far already. Like,
Man, I think you look great. I actually think you look great.
Well,
and
there
like,
you go.
If it's any consolation, my sister really fancies you. Like, there, that's it. It's out there.
But like so I decided to bite the bullet on I think it was a Saturday morning, and I think she did a good enough job, but there was a few bits at the back that were a small bit uneven and all the rest of it. But I'd say about an hour after she had finished cutting the hair, like, and first effort, and it was good, like, But RTE rang and they says, "Can you come in to Foddermatcher Street and do a clip for the 6-1?" So I was talking to the camera crew there, and I was saying, like, "Listen, here's the story. We're after doing the DIY haircut here, so can you just try and focus head on here, like, and present me in the most flattering angle possible." But I think Eamor has done a fantastic job with the haircut and the camera work
She
so
has,
far.
man. You look fantastic.
You too. You're very stylish. How about yourself then? What has been the crack during lockdown?
Yeah, like in terms of stuff that's kind of cracking me up, like, yeah, geez, I don't know. I'm kind of on the spot there now. I'm just kind of taking it all in here in the garden, like, there's, as I say, like, there's a lot to be had with the robins. There's actually a brutal, I suppose I should report it right, that there's a kind of a brutal cat around my gaff. I'm living in the Frankfield kind of Grange area. I won't give the exact house now in case someone calls around, but there's a ginger cat around, and
Patrick, I'll
like,
point you to your door.
see, this is the thing. Well, I think he'd probably be in kind of Mount Oval, Montanati kind of area. But anyway, if anybody owns this ginger cat in the Frankfield Grange area, I'd be very interested in having a conversation with you, because he's kind of popping into my garden every day. I see him; he's got a new bird in his mouth. And my buddy there, the fella I'm living with, Dom, who you might know from Cahoots and Young Offenders as well, he was kind of saying that they don't eat the birds for food. So if you could get me any info on that, it'd be great. Apparently, they're just eating them out of kind of pure spite, and he's kind of like he's up to 3 or 4 birds a day, and you'll see him kind of passing by there. I'm just outside sunbathing, whatever, pretending to write a sketch or whatever. Cat will come back, he'll come through, and I'll go like try and get his attention. And when he's got a bird in the mouth, he won't even look back. So I think he could be mental, basically.
He's a metaphor
So
for
yeah,
modern capitalism.
exactly. Like, he's gobbling up the working bird again, like, So if anybody can let me know where that cat lives, I'd love to speak to the owner.
One of the things I had to do was so we moved houses just before Christmas, but our dog, we have a dog, and he's a pure crank. But he's tormented by a cat as well. But the dog kept on getting over. We have a low wall, like, but we had to put up a fence while we decided to put up a fence, and I had a few old bits of mesh and things like that. Like, but like if you want to see the worst fence in Cork, you can come around to my house, because this was before Woodies were open or anything like that. So I found a load of old floorboards in the shed and hacked them to pieces. Honest to God, they're vaguely like raggedy matchsticks with bits of mesh between them, but they're doing the job anyway. They're keeping the dog in. We might start wrapping up there, but so look, I mean, we've touched on it before, like, society, like, this is not normal, the situation that we're in, like, and like, I do think people want to change, like, and listen, it's entirely understandable, and I think they're right in many instances. There's so many things about our lives that we miss, but there's lots of things that we don't miss as well. There's like, the way society was organized, so hard on so many people, like, really like hamsters in a wheel. you know just working from Monday to Friday, often into Saturdays, working at nights and all the rest of it, trying to fit it all in. People working any amounts of hours in the week and barely able to pay the bills, maybe even in arrears on a mortgage, things like that. People struggling to find enough work to pay the bills. Like, and I always think it's mad. This is a small bit off the beaten track, like, but like, I think if you went back 100 years and he's told people all the devices that save labour and all the ways that work might have got easier in different jobs and all the rest of it, and people found out that we're still working the same amount of hours and maybe more hours than we ever were, like, I think people would think it's mad, like, so, like, there is an opportunity, and it's not inevitable. Like, it's not inevitable. People are going to have to push for it, and people are going to have to fight for it. But there is an opportunity to build a better society, a fairer society, a more flexible society, a more tolerant, understanding society. So, what's the one thing, if you were to pick one thing that you would change about the way society was, and take it out of this lockdown and into whatever the new normal is going to be, what would that be, do you think?
I suppose it would be the fact that people at the very top, let's just call them the elites, I suppose, are allowed to increase that inequality. Say if you look at Ireland, or you look at the States, wherever, they're allowed to increase that inequality without really truly being checked on what they're doing, without having that accountability. And I think, to end on a positive, that accountability will always come from the people. And even though I think people at the top are very interested in dividing us and obfuscating and denying us the information, it's readily available. Like, you can just go online and find out exactly how this country has been run for the last how many number of years, exactly what our rights are as people and what we deserve as ordinary workers. As you say, like as we were saying earlier, we're not looking for kind of crazy Marxist revolutions. We're just looking for roof over our head and for people not to, be homeless on the streets, and for us not to walk past people homeless on the streets and think that that's okay, whilst there's kind of massive corporations and right next to us and massive hotels opening up all the time and stuff, to feel as a society that that's okay, because it's not. So
Yeah.
that's what I would like. I would like to see accountability, and I would like to see the people not allow themselves to be divided and unite, because we have a brilliant opportunity here. And Irish people are class. Like you said it earlier there, Irish people are unreal when they get together. If we get together and stay focused on reducing that inequality and not accepting the elites to keep going on their merry dance, which I think what was happening in that election in February, like let's get back to that moment, I think. And I'm very excited about it. I think that's going to happen.
Like, I think, from the general election, in a way, it seems so long ago now. Like the kind of things that people were talking about that they weren't getting, like, it wasn't anything excessive. It really was the basic fundamentals, like the simple roof over your head, the right to retire when you've, after putting in 4, maybe even 5 decades of work, and to be able to retire. The right to a decent education, and people with special education needs, that they get their right to an education. Like, these are the basic fundamental things that make society tick. Yeah. And I think this crisis, like, it's been really, really challenging. It's been really, really frightening, and it is very far from over. But I do think, and there's so much more work to do. But I really do think it's shown us, like, that the most important people to our society, the people who contribute the most, are the people who are at the front line in our services, in our workplaces. It is not the financiers, it's not the hedge fund, it's not the speculators, it's the healthcare workers, it's communication workers, post workers, shop workers, you name it. They're the most important people. So, like, I think it's putting those people front and center. That would be the change that, to the political system I'd want to make. And, like, change the way we work, the way our work and our lives is organised. I don't think it makes sense. Like, I do think we need to be ambitious. We need to look at things like universal basic income, or the 4-day week, and things like that, and as well as flexible working and working from home. So that's what I think. And the Irish people, I think, are fantastic. We've seen some of the very, very best of them, and I think we will continue to do so.
And one last thing, support the arts. Because if the artists stop making art, we'll have actually fucking nothing to do.
Speaking of art, my Darren O'Keefe, or one of our press lads, has texted me to share a picture of the work of art that is my raggedy fence. So so I'll have to do that straight after. Look, we'll leave it there as well. And I suppose just to thank you, Tadhg, for joining us for this chat, and thank everyone who tuned in tonight. Look, we've touched on a number of issues, in terms of work, in terms of childcare, in terms of various things. But I think mental health is a key one, and that's a topic we're going to return to again and again, because this has been challenging for people's mental health of all ages. So, like all these issues, we're going to return to them again, and we're committed in Sinn Féin to continuing the discussion with the public throughout this lockdown and beyond. So, thanks very much for your time. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks very much, Tadhg, and Ihuwa. Slán go fóill.